because yeah, it's like there's no point talking about this twice. So so we were talking about we're just gonna jump right into it. We were talking about conscious agents theory from Donald Hoffman. I was watching a video where he's talking about all this stuff about conscious agents and how consciousness could be the primary constituent element of reality, and how like consciousness is exchanging experiences as opposed to like actual matter, right? That's more of an evolutionary interface, right, that we use to survive. And so okay, like we could talk about all that. I'm looking forward to talking about consciousness with you. But the one thing I did mention, and why I wanted to hit record, is that as I was talking or as I was watching this, I just saw a lot of OP talk. I think as well as things that I think could help OP as a system, right? So I'll actually start with that. I think the thing that Donald Hoffman, that I admire him for, is his commitment to the scientific method, where he's very much like, you want to have a very precise definition for things, not because you're right, but it's actually because you need something specific to be wrong about, right?
And that's falsifiable.
Exactly. And I think OP, I'm gonna be honest, is like it's starting to veer into a territory, like at least like I'm kind of like vexed about the whole social types like situation right now, because it's like we're in a space where it's not that. It's like it's very like loose patterns, and it's like everyone like right now it's like everyone in the Facebook has like you could just basically claim anything you want right now about social.
Right?
It's just ridiculous.
It's the problem with the scientific method. It's way, again, I'm in STEM, but I'm not an expert on the scientific method. I understand just the basics as most people do. But it's like, it's that idea that like, okay, this takes longer to prove. This takes much more time, much more ST, much more peer reviewing. It takes a lot of people in different parts of the world. You need to actually, they do have a method behind the way that they're reaching the types. And that's the whole reason why, at least me personally, I got invested into this OP theory in the first place, was because we separate ourselves in, Dave and Shen separated themselves into two rooms, watch the same videos, note down their conclusions, and then they compare what they wrote on the paper, right? And there's a very high similarity between their guesses, and that's where you can have a sense of, okay, there might be some gold in here, right? Something of substance in here.
Yeah.
So I agree that they are better than other theories that utilize the cognitive functions because they've applied that method. But I think there's also more to that you need to do to actually be at the same level at which science is in, and it's much more of a continuous process. And I understand that they haven't reached that at that point. Personally, I think they don't have the resources for it. They're doing their best.
Yeah.
And that's where we are at right now in the OP stage, so to say. So just to give some context really quickly, so I've been here since they re-released their YouTube channel back in 2018. It was called Dave Superpowers.
Dave Superpowers, that's
I remember watching it visually, looking at it, and still seeing the old videos from 2012. You know, like the old definitions,
the little bubbles.
Being confused between the old definitions and the current ones. So I've been here following this for some time now. I just haven't shown myself on the community as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. I think so. And it's been great to have you around. I'm especially
thank you for having me. By the way, you started recording. I didn't mention.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I don't want to like show myself like, what's up, you know?
Yeah.
That's fine. Please.
Yeah. So I think that we might as well talk about Donald Hoffman juxtaposed with the OP system, right? I think that might be the first topic. I think that it's like, as you mentioned, I think it's a resource issue, but I think also like this is something that, so maybe I'm going to get some flack for this, for just processing it out loud, but I have been thinking about this. So I work in, I don't know if I guess I would call it STEM as well, technology. Yeah. So I work in software engineering, and the environment of software engineering is very, yes, it's question friendly, but it's very rigorous about, you don't present just anything, right? It's like, it has to be a very, like, so I'm thinking, for example, for myself, if I wanted to learn something about something, or if I wanted to make a claim about something, it's like I need to provide like my best understanding of it, which is fine. Like it could be wrong. My best understanding of it, my evidence for that, and then that is the basis upon which we refine, much like the scientific method itself. It's like we refine based
That
on
is a
like, okay,
scientific method, to me
yeah,
at
we
least.
refine based on where you are. And I think that I'm saying this, I really think I'm saying this more about the community surrounding the OP as opposed to Dave and Shan themselves. I think Dave and Shan do this just fine. I think that what I'm seeing that I'm getting kind of confused by is like literally it's like you can say whatever you want. Like, like it's like the culture is like it reminds me of what Dave used to push so hard against 5 years ago when those old Dave Superpower videos of like, oh, it resonates with me, or oh,
With me,
this
and
or
I'll
oh
just
that.
say it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean, I fall guilty of this too. It's like I'll throw something out, and it's like I don't have much evidence for it. Like I think I've made a post today. I'm like, I'm not sure about this one, right? And I think I think there's a place for that, but I think as a whole, what this starts to do, this is the frustration. I think with the social types, what started to happen is that there's been some crowdsourcing of ideation that's been happening for the social types,
and it spreads thin amongst a lot of people.
Yeah,
and each individual gives their own point of view, and there's not a lot of consensus between each individual. And so you go to see what people say on Facebook. You go see Dave and Shan. Dave and Shan kind of still are defining it. They're not really sure of the relationship between social types and animals or cognitive functions, so to say, because the animal order of each social type has changed even between live shows that Shan has done and their videos that they've published on their channel. It's not only that. Then you go, for example, you see a video of Abib trying to explain his own point of view. Then you see a video of Holly and Felix, and there's like no coherence. And I'm not saying that anyone's wrong. It's just that what that shows is that there is a lack of method that would and I guess falsifiability that would force us to collapse on one definition. We don't have like a way to test the social types that's good enough for us to establish that relationship. And even in I'm talking about the relationship between social types and the animals, but I also mean the actual definitions of the social types in and of themselves. I'm kind of talking about this too.
That as well. I think the one area this might be where the method of the what did you call it, like the double blind testing, where it's like you have them in two separate areas. I don't know what the word is, but you have them in two separate rooms or two separate domains, and then they get to similar type. I think that's still working for the social types. I think they're getting the same social type as each other, right? Yeah. And I think the community is kind of spot on. It's the issue of, I think this issue is still actually plaguing OP in general, where it's like the precision of the definitions
is not good enough.
Is not like, and this, I mean, this has technically been a problem for other coins, right? You can see this with like,
it has. I think what you're saying is completely true. Like the issue that we've been having with the socials is the same as we've been having with the coins. You go to their page and they've provided their best attempt at not only with their videos, the terms page, every resource that you have, and you try to find something of substance. You know, you try to look at, for example, their the typing tool that they use even in the videos of the types. You know, and they do have definitions next to the coins, and you can use that to type. Right. There are some people that are really good at typing in the community, so there must be something that they're getting right. But for the average person like me, because I'm still not very good at typing, I still have some trouble acknowledging the coins, because I look at the definition, I'm like, yeah, but I see a person. So let's say I'm watching a video of a person. I see them acting, doing things in reality, right? Yeah. I can interpret that in more than one way. I could see that as thinking. I could see that as feeling. Sometimes I think I'm seeing both in the same sentence or action that they're doing. So there's a lot of exactness that is not well shown and proven and defined in a way that would allow us to be able to type more easily. You know, I think that's at least personally, that's been my issue. Again, I'm not blaming them for it. I think they're doing their best, but there is that gap. That's what I'm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that. So what's fascinating though is that I think that, I mean, Shan at the very least is aware of this problem. And I think
Yeah.
that one of the ways that she's been trying to address it is this concept of the whole, like the tree analogy of like patterns, right? So it's like you have the like if
Trunks and leaves.
yeah, trunks, leaves, and then roots ultimately.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I think that like what I'm hoping for is like a root definition that I'm like, okay, I can use this and I can trust this, and whether it's type or do things with my life, it's like I can just use this, and
Right.
that's my bias. I think that what's been happening is that it's almost like, I know this might just be me complaining, so I apologize, but
No,
I think
that's
it's
fine.
it's almost like either it's one of two things. Either they have the root pattern and they just don't know how to communicate it, which might be, I think I'm that would be the charitable point of view, right? They do have the definitions. It's just a communication situation.
Yeah, I think
Right.
it's an NI thing. I think
Okay.
because they're both NISE, right?
Yeah.
And I think it might have to do with that. Because the NI has an understanding, but the understanding does not exist in terms of words or definitions.
Right. It's just, yeah.
That's the root of the roots of all these issues that we're talking about, in my opinion. It's like they have an understanding, and so when they come in and they type in the way that they do, again, I don't know exactly how they're typing, right? But they're following their method, right?
Yeah.
2 separate agents trying to look at the videos, having a guess, comparing the similarity between those guesses. They have an NI understanding of, okay, this person's saying these things, save your sensor, that they can't quite explain, or if they do, they haven't managed to do that as well yet. But I think they might have some, the function in and of themselves of NISC might give out that difficulty, right?
Yeah.
Of they understand that when they see the person do X, it's coin Y, and they get the type, they compare, it's the same guess, so there's validity here.
Yeah.
From a scientific point of view. But then when they actually have to communicate, it's like all over the place, because it's not words, it's not actions, it's a feeling, right? It's an intuitive sort of feeling that's happening here.
And the problem with that is that it makes it harder for it to be replicable, which is one other aspect of the scientific method as well. It's like going back to the computer science analogy. It's like it's great that it works on your computer. I need it to work on my computer now. Like
another thing that I'd like to add to that. Sorry for interrupting. It's like the anecdotes, right? What's up with anecdotes? Have you? Because like I have my own opinion of what anecdotes are. I think anecdotes are the sensor ST proof that we need for this to be more objective. Anecdotes are not necessarily like, oh, it's just an anecdote, right? No, anecdotes are the things that you should be able to see. Okay, if I see the person doing X thing X amount of times compared to Y thing, which they do less of that Y thing, then therefore they will have this coin because they did X more than Y. And you can apply this to any coin. So if I have a set of actions or behaviors or things that they do in life in the sensor that I can actually see in their videos or in their, again, this is very difficult to create and prove, etc. I'm speaking intuitively here. I'm not the one developing this, right? I'm discarding a lot of the work that might be behind this, but intuitively, it's like there should be some things that I look at the person, right? And then I can say, oh, they did this, and that's why it's this coin. And you might say, okay, but anecdotes shouldn't really work. Well, what are you doing when you type? You're listening to a person's words, a person's actions, a person's emotional state, a person's patterns in life. But the patterns in life always come from the observations. What are observations? They're kind of anecdotes, not the exact definition of the term, right? But they're kind of just things that you're seeing the person doing. And that's how you can get more objectivity. You have to use those. You can't just say, oh, this person has this function because they said this, and then the next video, oh, you should not listen to anecdotes. It's a contradiction, in my opinion. Maybe I'm not seeing it properly.
I wonder about that. I don't have an answer. So I'm basing this off of my recent forays into understanding SF sleep, right? I'm not going to get too much into that, but people who have known me in the community and people who know my type know this kid's been processing, like trying to understand sleep this whole time. And he keeps asking about it. Like, what the hell is this kid's problem? All right. So recently I feel like I got some breakthrough where it's like I had a, like, first of all, I asked a whole bunch of people in the community. There was some I got the anecdotes, right? Hey, I do this. I watch things that I enjoy. I fantasize about like scenarios that may happen. I try and, do this, I do that. And so literally I just fed that into ChatGPT and I just gave up and I was like, all right, just give me some activities that are like these. And so I've been doing that. When it comes to the understanding though, I had a call with Dave recently, which was awesome. I think that he literally was like, sleep is just resolving. That was his definition. Sleep is you could do like, and he made it so radically simple where he was like, you could do sleep by talking with someone. You could do sleep at a Tony Robbins seminar if you want to. You could do resolving anywhere. As long as you're coming to conclusions and resolutions, that counts.
I agree. I have a very similar understanding of the concept of sleep. I define it as refining, which again is just a word that they've also given in the classes. Yeah. It's refining. They use narrowing down. I've always had a weird relationship with narrowing down because yes, but narrowing down what, but yeah. It's refining. Sleep is difficult to describe, more difficult than just DI or OI because it's two coins at the same time, right? Right. It's a double effort. And I think to understand sleep, like really get it, you got to really get OI and DI. You really got to nail those two before you understand what sleep is, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's like OI, okay. OI is about, in my opinion, is about repeatability. It's about, it's always about repeatability. It doesn't matter if it's NI or SI. And I can get into the details of why I think that is. But it's about, again, I need to explain sort of how I view consciousness and my own internal theory of it, but it's about repeatability in conscious experiences, whatever that means. I'm not defining that yet, right? But and I think that DI is so DI kind of the deciders kind of work in an interesting manner. So the observers define the map, right? You have a map that you can navigate, things that you can do, can't do. Possible, not possible, real, not real, happened, not happened. That's what sensory intuition, OE and OI are doing. They're defining the map. What the deciders are doing, and I don't have such a good way of defining the deciders as I did right now with the observers, but what the deciders are doing is they're collapsing. They're saying, okay, I could go front, I could go left, I could go right, and I could go back. When I get out of my bed in the morning today, which direction am I going to go? And the deciders are kind of sort of more on the motivational side of it. And so when you say sleep, back to the point, right? So when you say sleep is like knowing what path you want to travel and sort of collapsing onto that path every single time that you confront reality. Whatever chaos reality may bring, whatever situation may happen to you in your life, you're always like, okay, but I want to go back to this. I want to go back to this path.
Yeah.
DIY.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. So yeah. Thank you for breaking that down. I think so the reason I brought that up, so this whole example is because you were asking originally about like, should we use anecdotes as part of our definition of these terms? And I'm like, okay, is my understanding of resolving an anecdote, like I feel like anecdotes can fit into that understanding. But I feel like I would rather have the understanding that I have, right? I want that, like, it's like a, I want something that's like, if I say this, a whole bunch of examples fit into this word or phrase. And like, but it has to be something that I'm like, I got it. Right?
I got it. I know what you mean. Yeah. It's like the word or the idea clicks. It's that eureka moment, as they call it, right?
Exactly.
I also seek that with trying to understand the functions and in general, not just sleep specifically, just anything at all. That's what I'm trying to find too.
Yeah. And so to be fair, I mean, maybe that's just something like one thing that David has said specifically he's like, you need to come up with your own, like I think he said it this way. You need to come up with your own NI of it, meaning like you need to come up with your own understanding of OP, right? It's like we can give you the the types and we can give you the patterns, but you're responsible for coming up with your own definitions almost. And I think that maybe that's the case. I think that so in that sense, maybe having like a standardized definition is going to be hard because it might not click for everyone.
It depends on the person. I completely agree. I have something to say on that. I don't know if you want to keep going or okay. So basically, it makes total sense, right? Because so if we see each individual's brain as just a mechanism, right? Each mechanism is fundamentally built different.
Yeah.
Okay, one way to look at it is the quadras, right? The quadras and the modalities, if they give out their combinations, the combinations of all the quadras and all the modalities, those people all think differently. They have different ways of structuring information in their mind. And so what he's saying, I think, is right in the sense that no matter how good of a definition you have, you still have to go through the experience of typing someone or multiple people over time and getting it wrong and getting it wrong and getting it wrong. And then eventually something will click to you, subjectively to you. That's what he means by your own definition. You will start to notice things that click to you that allow you to get the same type as them, right? But the things that click to you in the way that you represent them internally in your mind might not have anything to do with the way that other people with the way that it clicks with other people. And so you might see red, I might see green, but we both write down the same type on paper. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right. So and as long as you do that, then it's fine, right?
Then it's fine. It's totally fine. And that's why I think Dave is right in what he's saying. The problem is that, okay, we're not at the point where we have so typing in it's trying to type and trying to get the same type as David Shen is one great way of learning this internal model that he's talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because okay, you got it wrong. Okay, what did they do? Let me see the class. And then a lot of things will pass over you, but you'll grab onto 1% of the information that they said. Next week you'll be 1% or 0.1% better, right? And then you just do this for some months or years, and eventually you'll start getting the same type as them, even though your internal representations might be completely different than theirs.
Yeah.
Right? That's one way to do it. But I think that there could be a more, let's say, abstract, conceptual, not mathematical, but definitions, as we were talking about, that could ease that process. And I think that could be done. So what do I mean by definition? Well, back to maybe I'm not using the word anecdotes well. Maybe my utilization of the word isn't in accordance with the actual definition of the word. Maybe that's my issue. Maybe I'm miscommunicating the word anecdotes here. But I think that it's about having more sensor that you should be looking for, or writing down explicitly what sensor you need to look for when trying to see a particular function. And I think, okay, the one definitions that they use are very summed up and narrowed down, good. But you're going to fill them up with your own subjective experience as you type, because there's not a lot of sensor in them. Instead, you could have more sensor in the definitions, and then there would be less room for subjectivity in your internal representations.
Right.
It's a matter of more. Are you going to be more explicit with the definitions, or more vague, and then let the people learn by themselves what each definition is to them?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess it depends on what the intention is. I think what you're making me realize, honestly, I think, and it's a good realization or good reminder, is that at the end of the day, these definitions are meant to help you type. It's not necessarily designed to help you live your life, which is my bias. Because I'm not typing people right now, right?
Right.
So it's like I'm using these definitions, and forgive the background noise if you hear that, but I'm using these definitions in the sense of like, hey, what is sleep for me? So I can do it. Like maybe there is a bit of typing because it's like there's interpersonal dynamics with people I don't know their type. So okay, sure.
You have to type, because for you to know what role you're playing in the tribe, well, you need to know the tribe, so you need to know other people's types. Even if you're not consciously, deliberately trying to know your coworker's type, you eventually might get into an argument with them, and then after you have a very tiring argument, you'll be like, okay, this person's OI and I'm OE, maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
And they're arguing for repeatability, and I'm arguing for new. So you can't really avoid this model that seems to be happening objectively to us, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so that's fair. I guess the point I guess I was hopefully trying to make there though is like the purpose of the checklist and even of like everything that Dave and Shan are putting out there. And I'm specifically talking about Dave and Shan because I feel like the community has a totally different problem. But like Dave and Shan, what they're putting out with their content is here's stuff that can help you type, right? Whether it helps you live your life is secondary. That's what the live shows are for or whatever. But like, here's knowing what a number one is. It's like maybe that's why she had the animals there. It's like they look kind of blasty. It's like that doesn't make sense logically, but if you know they look kind of blasty, that will help you type, and then you can figure out on your own what to do with that information, right? And so I think I think it's one of those things where this might be me being a little bit belligerent, but it's like if that's the case, then it's like we should just say that instead of using it as a using the definitions rather as a self-growth tool, right? It's like if knowing if they're blasty, it's like if they look blasty, it's like that has nothing to do with whether that's good or bad for them, right? Or whether that's a growth or demon. Like I don't even know any of that. All I know is that it's associated with that loose animal or DI or whatever. And so I feel like I could come to terms with that as long as how it was talked about is that explicit. It's like, these are patterns that will help you get the type right. And then it's your responsibility to navigate how
the implications that has on your life.
Exactly.
Right.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So basically, I think you're drawing out two very important things, which is the theory and the application of the theory in your life. I'm interested in both. I kind of, for me to feel allowed to apply it, I kind of need to develop the theory. That's my approach to it. You could describe that in terms of my functions, but let's not get into that. Like, I just need to understand what's going on and have a model for it before I put my foot in the pool. That's kind of how I feel about this OLP thing. Mm-hmm. So personally, that's my stance. And so what you say is very interesting because it's like, okay, so we want to apply this to our lives, right? Because we see that there's potential in it. My opinion is that if you don't have a good enough theory, you can't really know how to apply it. This is how I would go about it, right? So you kind of need to put your foot in the pool of like, okay, I need to understand the theory. I need to make sense of this. This needs to. I also need to have like a way to say, okay, this person is doing this coin, because as you get better at doing that mapping, right, you can then say, okay, I got a new job. I have new coworkers. I know I'm this type, right? And then I'm interacting with these people. Oh, this person seems to be this type. This person seems to be type B, type C. Doesn't matter what the types are. People are more than their types, right? We all know this. But it's the fact that you are eventually going to have conflict, because it's unavoidable. People are not exactly the same. There's going to be differences in people's nature and nurture. And so there's going to be conflict, and how you resolve conflict to a common goal, which is the job that you are both doing in your company, in your new job. And that's the applicability part. And that's what's really interesting about the type 2, in my opinion. I'm interested in both. I find both equally fascinating. The theory in and of itself, the actual pattern of it, and that applicability that of applying the type. I'm on to both, But it's okay. But you can't, in my opinion, you can't apply it. That's a lot that I'm trying to say here. You can't really apply it if you don't really know what you're looking for. If you don't know what red is, what green is, what blue is, how can you know that how your color is going to match with other people's color and the combination of those two colors if you don't know what your color is and other people's color is? You kind of need that before. That's my view personally. But then again, I might be missing something here. But that's why I'm still interested in the theory in and of itself, and I, for example, talk about the definitions.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. I think how did we even get here? It was half an hour of just...
We're having good conversation. That's what we're doing. We started out with Vinland, right?
Well, I mean, not today, but yeah, I mean, that's how this whole connection.
That's how this whole. Yeah. Right. Then it's consciousness. I was also watching some videos of Donald Hoffman yesterday, and yeah, I guess we all talked about OP and type, but I can put this. I can talk about consciousness, or at least my view of consciousness,
sure,
if you'd like to.
Yeah.
So to change topics. That's basically my great interest in life, to keep it short. Like ever since I was little, like ever since I was like 11, 12, 13, around that age, I remember like staying up at night in bed, like thinking, okay, one day I'm gonna die, like, okay, so and then confronting the fact that life is gonna end someday. And then what really puzzled me was, okay, what I'm giving you my sleep talk, but I'll get there. Sorry.
That's fine.
And then someday. So why am I here in the first place? So if the end of all this, of all life, is death, then why the hell am I put here in the first place? What's the goal of life? What's the meaning of life, right? And a lot of people, a lot of observers especially, I think, have this stuckness with this. You could say that my interest in OP is a result of that stuckness. I don't care. I'm still doing it. I'm still interested in it, right? But it's like that thing of like, okay, so I want to understand the fundamental, this fundamental understanding of why are we here, the meaning, and etc. And so as I was growing up, I was always interested. I was always a really bad student. I was never good at studying, but the interest of like, okay, I want to get more into science because I see science as the best way that I have, and a bit of philosophy too, as the best way to explain answer these questions, right? Because of physics, right? There's this model that matter and energy, and then there's the brain, and the brain generates all of our experience, right? And I was like more on the objective side of physics and actually matter energy, right?
Yeah.
And the way that this connects back to consciousness, to jump very quickly here, is that as I learned about objective personalities, was back in 2018, and then watched their videos, and they talked about Donald Hoffman, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I started viewing videos of Donald Hoffman, and it took me a long time. Like it took me like a year to fully, because I watched the videos and I was like, okay, interesting. This is really interesting. But then I went back to my life. Then 1 year later, I watched it and I was like, wait a minute, And so to answer the question, so my view on consciousness, and that's the topic that I think we're on to here right now. It's to me, consciousness is fundamental, and I'm just regurgitating what Donald Hoffman says. But my TI, I will I have a very strong subjective argument for why that is the case, and I don't think you can argue your way around this. Like consciousness is fundamental.
Okay,
now,
so
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to ask a bunch of clarifying questions because I think like I'm in the middle of it's kind of making sense phase, and I feel like maybe people watching will have that as well. So I think that, first of all, when you say consciousness is fundamental, what do you mean by that?
First you need to define consciousness. Consciousness is the fact of awareness. Consciousness, awareness, kind of using those two words interchangeably. The root meaning is the fact that you are here, you are present, you feel yourself right now, you're awake, you're alive.
Yeah.
Consciousness is something that somewhat goes away when you go to sleep, and is supposedly something that is not, it's at zero when you die. It supposedly was at zero before you were born, right? If you want to kind of try to measure it. Consciousness is the fact that it's this whole, it's this box or circle that contains all feelings, thinking, sensors, intuitions, and whatever things you want to talk about, all experiences, be it from the emotions of, from the most emotional side of like pain, pleasure, feeling hungry, whatever, then from the more intellectual values of like, oh, I want money, I want children, that's a more NF side, right? To the more deliberate thinker things of like, okay, this is reasonable, this is logical, this is true, this is false, this is right and wrong. That's the decider aspect, but also the observer aspect of like, okay, what is, what isn't, what's real, what's not real, what is a fact, what is not a fact, like all of conscious experience, because I see conscious experience as being reasonably well defined by the functions. That's why I'm using the functions to define it. But if you don't find that enough, then place in whatever things you want to place in. It's just this whole this one idea that contains inside of it all of conscious experiences. And the reason why I think of it like this is you cannot run away from it. For you to think about consciousness, whether it is you believe in it or not, is to be conscious, because to think is an expression or a result, or let's say an output of consciousness. For you to be able to verify what's your thoughts, whether they be right or wrong, whether you agree or not agree, resonate, not resonate, to perceive or not to perceive, whatever it is that you want to talk about or think about or do, it's all happening within the fact that you are aware. You can't do something or recognize that you're doing something without being aware. And so what happens is that independently of what you are doing, if you are there, then that's the same thing as saying that you are conscious. And so whatever models that we may have of objective reality, right? We talk about physics. So physics explains how objects move, gravity, quantum mechanics, all these models, in my opinion, and this makes a lot of sense to me personally, are just internal subjective representations of the experiences that we subjectively experience. It's all just a clumping up of subjective experiences. It's all subjective. And it's kind of like, it brings about that idea of the matrix, right? Okay, so you're going through your subjective experiences, but you can never really say anything about what's objectively happening in reality, right? Okay. There could be a huge disconnect between what you see, think, feel, believe, right, wrong, true, false, coherent, not coherent, provable, not provable. And there could be a huge disconnect between that and what's really happening in reality. Reality could just be ponies, and you couldn't really know, because all the information that you have of it is the what the brain is the creating for you as you consciously experience it. And so that's why this all ties into Donald Hoffman's theory, and why I think consciousness is the most important thing to study. That's my greatest fascination at the moment. It's the thing that I'm trying to sort of TI work on,
Yeah.
And it's because of that. I think that I couldn't even think of anything at all. I couldn't even think of OP if I wasn't consciousness, if you want to go at it like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. I have a lot of follow-up questions. Where do I start? I think so you mentioned how this fascination started, I think you said when you were 11, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that
around, I don't know the censor. It's feminine. It's around that age. Yes.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah.
So, and it originated from this idea of like kind of wrestling with death, which is kind of wild to do at that age. But I guess my first question is, as you explore this, I guess, what is your hope or what is your goal? Like, are you just fleshing it out just because you think it's inherently important, or is there like an end goal that you're aiming for?
It's my intellectual interest. So Shen was really good at explaining this, like motivation for the TIs, right? The TI should follow intellectual interest, and that's my intellectual interest. That's a short answer.
Okay.
So that's it. I have answered your question, but I could clarify it just a bit more. It's like,
okay,
it's not. I've reached the point where I'm like, okay, thinking of death is just another representation that happens in consciousness. So I think consciousness is even more fundamental than the thing that led me to think of consciousness in the first place. So that's where I'm at right now. It was what motivated me to get here, in fact, was me jumping ahead to, okay, what's the end goal of life, right?
Yeah.
That's where it all started. But I'm now at another level, personally. I think I am. Nice. Not to say that I'm above death or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Please don't.
No, just interest-wise. No, I get you.
Yeah.
I think that I'm very fascinated with how you're processing this as well. It sounds like you're borrowing very heavily from the conscious agents theory, as you've mentioned. So I'm assuming you're not like a solipsist. I don't think like you think like everything is just you with your awareness. I think that I would imagine that unless you
yes and no. Like, I think that there is a more fundamental pattern that's at the root of consciousness that I haven't mentioned, and to me that's the one thing that I think explains everything, so to say, and that's the idea of dualism. Okay, so so I can spend all day talking about how subjective your experiences are, if you told me, oh, Tiago, you're right, the conversation would end, but I would still turn to you and say, yes, but the whole reason why we're subjectively experiencing them is because there is something objectively happening outside of our subjective experiences. So dualism is more fundamental than consciousness, because it's very simple. There's consciousness, which is us and our subjective experiences, and then there's everything else, consciousness and non-consciousness. Therefore, dualism is more fundamental. It's a fundamental pattern that is happening here. So you say, if I'm a solipsist, I think everything is subjective. I think that we are conscious entities, conscious agents, right? Therefore, we only live in the subjective. But to live in the subjective implies that there is an objective. So I'm not a solipsist. I guess I wouldn't be a solipsist. I don't know exactly how much the term applies to my view here. So I'm trying to be precise here, but I wouldn't be solipsist to say that all is subjective. No, all is subjective, yes, but that implies that there's also an objective side to it that you don't see, but it is there, because you couldn't subjectively experiencing things if they weren't objectively happening. It's a contradiction, you know. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, cool. And then I think my next question is regarding OP. I think you've hinted at it with your kind of this view that dualism is more fundamental. I mean, OP at its very core is dualist in nature.
Dualistic. That's also why I'm really interested. Yeah. Right, I find a lot of similarity in those two ideas. But maybe the model needs to be developed further, and we'll find that it's not as dualistic as we think. Maybe it works more granularly. Like you could define sensor and intuition as real values between 0 and 1, and so you could have 0.4 sensor, 0.6 intuition. Do you see what I mean? It's not just zeros and ones. But yes, I see what you mean. I do resonate a lot with OP because of that dualistic nature.
Nice. Yes. Okay. I'm trying to think if I don't know if I have more questions. I just find it very fascinating. I think that I've dabbled with consciousness, but I think honestly, as I've talked to you, it's like maybe it's because I have FI or whatever. You can maybe explain it however you want. I have a very like practical, not practical, like I understand things to the degree that they help me. Let me put it that way, right? And so I think with consciousness, it's one of those things where it's like it's one of those ideas where I'm like, it's not yet fleshed out to where if I know more about it, it will help me, right? Like conscious agents theory, for example. Like Donald Hoffman's entertaining a lot of ideas, for example. It's like, yes, you can kind of maybe create portals of new consciousness, or there's maybe ways to create new conscious entities outside of procreation. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
maybe
getting into the crazy land of it, right?
I'm like maybe, but it's like until those are fleshed out, I'm like, there's not anything applicable that I've seen yet. So it's like
that would motivate you to believe it.
That would motivate me personally, exactly.
That's fine. That's like basically all the relationship between intuition and sensory. If you want to really, you can believe in things when they're not proven, but it's better to believe in them when they are proven, right? Yeah. The reason why I take consciousness with such a I guess seriousness, that would be the word, is because you can prove it whenever you want to. It's just you're conscious right now. How could you be listening to me right now?
I mean you're
using it's the ultimate thing that you can prove, because to say you have a scientific experiment, right? And that scientific experiment gives you results, and then you say that you compare those results with other people, and so you believed that you guys were in a consensus, right?
Yeah.
But you go listen to Donald Hoffman, because he also says this. But that belief that you guys were in a consensus was all just internal representations. It was you. It was your light of this other person's that was being represented in your mind. It was your belief that you heard the other person say that they agree with you. And therefore, the idea that person A and person B are in agreement with their results is just an internal representation of person A. That's right. What I think. That's my sort of view on these things at the moment. So I always shove it back to subjective. That's what I'm basically doing, if you want to.
Yeah. And apologies for almost interrupting you earlier.
That's fine. Sorry. I actually interrupted you.
I think that what I was going to say is that you're taking a very like the whole Rene Descartes approach, where it's like he says think, but it's like, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I think, therefore I am, that whole thing. It's kind of like you're kind of using a similar.
Yeah, it's similar, I guess. Yeah. I didn't think of that. I remember studying him in high school, but I wasn't aware of that up until now. That yeah, it's similar. Yeah, that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. I'm not sure how processed I'm going to be. I think I should probably move on. It's such a big topic. I guess let me ask you this: when it comes to, yeah, maybe what I'm looking for is like, you have the self-evident almost argument of awareness. So, and I can't argue with that. I also have that. I get that. When it comes to like practical applications, do you see any fruits of that in your studies?
Not directly, no.
Okay.
So we were talking about like the application of the theory. I'm still at the theory development part, so I can't really give you an exact application to give you the short answer. But I think, this is my personal view, is that to have a practical application that you can be absolutely sure works, you need a theoretical a theoretical view. And again, this is my opinion, right? I'm kind of the guy that thinks you should have a model before you do anything. That's kind of my problem, right? It's also a problem in my personal life. I don't go out a lot and stuff like that. That's a me thing, right?
Yeah, no,
but if you wanna talk about these kinds of things, my approach is that you should have a model before you say, oh, this OP theory is really applicable in my life. No, you should have a model that's well established and that you can prove in your observations, and it's consistent with the observations. The model needs to be good, and then you can say, okay, then you can start. Okay, this is the map, and this is I can predict that I'm going to neglect, if I'm a YLS, I'm going to neglect old information or repeatable information. I'm going to be shoving or very dependent on always looking at things in a different angle, always seeing things differently, always exploring new possibilities. I'm always looking for that, to the point that everyone around me is kind of like getting mad at me and things are getting counterproductive.
Yeah.
To acknowledge that and to actually be like, okay, I was running on this high, but I can't anymore. I gotta do something that's uncomfortable for me. But then you do the thing that's uncomfortable, which I guess would be, I'm giving you as example. Sorry, that's the one I first thought of. The not you, your type, basically.
Okay.
As an example, that's not you specifically. Your type, like lead any D&S side. That's kind of the example that I'm running with right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then like if you do some SI like consistent work in the future, you will notice that the problems that you were having diminished. Oh, okay, this is why it's applicable, because I applied this model onto reality, and reality gave me positive feedback, right?
Right.
And so I'm interested in studying exactly what it is that you need to do for for the reality to give you that positive feedback. But if you don't have, if we go to Facebook and everyone and you say a word and someone tells you, oh, you're clearly feeler or you're clearly thinker, that's not a model, man. That's just people saying their own there's more to say here. Each individual has their own subjective view. You shouldn't disrespect that. You should take that into consideration. You might be the one who's wrong. Yes, sure. But if it's not clear cut that we should all be in a consensus that this represents a particular function or represents a particular behavior, then there is a gap that must be met here that we haven't met yet. That is to say, different opinions mean that we don't have a good enough model. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
I'm laughing throughout this because it's like even the OP model itself, at least my understanding of the model, it's like it has an explanation for this, which I find funny, right? It would basically, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's an infodom problem. This need to have the information correct.
Yeah, that's if I was David Chan, I'd turn to you and say, oh, you have an issue with SI labels, Reggie.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
That's true as well. Yeah, no, funny.
Could be right, but your argument is applicable outside of that argument of the SI labels. It's like, okay, people project this. Everyone does this. People.
Okay, sorry, I just connected what you're saying. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I don't know what you got stuck on. If you want to talk about it.
I was like, I thought you were talking about in the context of me calling you infodump, but I think you were talking about me with the social types, right?
No. My understanding of what you said was you say something on Facebook, someone answers you, "Oh, that's clearly an infodom, such an infodom thing of you, Reggie," and that's someone putting a label on you. I'm not saying that that's a right or wrong thing. I'm just saying that it's something that people do. They do project whatever they immediately think of you and comment about it, and then that gets to you and impacts you. But if you have like 5 people doing that, and then and then you see each individual comment, and everyone has their own subjective opinion, you realize, okay, there's not consistency in the what people are seeing. People have different views. So that was kind of my understanding of what you said. I don't know if that was what you really meant.
I mean, it's a good point. I think so. Here's maybe I need to flesh it out. So this is my fault. The original reason why I was laughing is I'm like, so I've been having this conversation with several energy DOMs, me personally, right? Because I have a similar, I don't want to call it a problem, but I have a similar approach to life where I need to have the understanding before I act, right? And so the reason I'm laughing is because all the energy DOMs are like, you can act without perfect knowledge. That's why I'm laughing. I'm like, it's like there are people that genuinely like, and I think OP would explain it this way. It's like the energy DOM approach is like you act and then the model emerges out of the action. Like almost like I don't know if you've studied Jordan Peterson at all. I know he's an info DOM, but it's his model of knowledge might be more energy DOM than anything else, in the sense that he talks about how semantic knowledge emerges out of behavioral knowledge. Right. And so it's like, that's why I was laughing. I was like, okay, we might both be falling into the infodom trap here.
I agree with both views. I think that, so this is why I'll make an argument for both. Energy DOM says that you need to type before a type is built. That's literally how we got OP, if you think about it. 2 energy DOMs practicing typing, and then the type was built. That's the energy DOM, at least as much as you're defining it right now. That's the energy DOM view, right? The info DOM is more like, okay, so you have a type. Let's now dive in more on the information. I've being exposed to this OP stuff for so long. I can't go left or right here. I think both are equally valid, to be honest. I think both are needed. You need both. You can't rely too much on the application to give you the result. You also need the informational aspect to maybe give you some insights into what you should be applying. It's another yin yang. It's like they feed into each other, right? You can't. So you tell me, oh, it's info energy. Both are needed. You need both. You need the info DOMs to be talking so much, exchanging so much information, but then not actually doing anything, right?
Yeah.
And then the energy DOMs doing a lot of stuff who don't even understand the informational aspect of it.
Yeah.
I'm being very
oversimplifying.
I'm being oversimplifying it, but you see my point here, right?
I do.
Yeah. I think you need both.
I think so too. I think it's just funny, like kind of like what you were saying, where it's like I've been in this so long. It's like because even this is a bit circular, because I'm like, okay, am I laughing and am I saying this because that's true, or am I saying that because I have the model and the model's already fleshed out in my head? To your point, and now I'm applying the model, right? So it's like, which one comes first at this point?
Chicken or egg?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good question. I'm not really processed on that. I don't think I can give you a good answer to that. But it's chicken or egg. That's what's happening here. It's like, okay, to apply. It's also the same thing as like trying to apply with a job that needs experience, but you don't have any experience, right? It's also those memes and those jokes. It's the same thing. It's like to apply, you need to know, but to know, you need to apply. Yeah. Okay, then where do you start? Doesn't matter. Some people are naturally, it seems to be, at least via OP, right? People are have a natural tendency to just do. oh, I just did, right? And then they're looking back at it and realize that they did. But the natural impulse to over your life do that, right? Even without knowing about objective personality, it was already there. The predisposition to go chicken before egg was already happening and manifesting in your decision making before you were even aware of the conundrum of chicken and egg. So it's interesting. It's like what I think, my opinion on this is one of those ideas that we can't fully understand, like the brain can't fully compute.
Yeah.
Because we can think of the paradox of chicken and egg, but we can't resolve it. And so we can only we can be aware that it exists, but really the answer is just some people are naturally predisposed to go chicken and some are predisposed to go egg. I think that's the best way that I could try to answer that.
Nice. All right, cool, man. We're coming up on time. I have about 5 minutes, and then maybe we could do a little post wrap up after recording. But this has been really fun. I'm trying to see if I can extract the lessons here. Maybe this is like a little summary. I learned the reason I'm doing this is because I've learned that I need to rephrase things that people say to like fully get it. So I think
approach.
Yeah, I've work has been kicking my ass because I haven't been doing that. So I think, okay, so we started with social types. I think that my takeaways were like, OP is originally a system that helps you type. It's a system of patterns, definitions, anecdotes, whatever, that is designed to help you type. And your point is you need to have a good model of type and be good at typing, basically, in order to apply, right? So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about like literally 2 seconds ago, where it's like you need to have a good model of what people are and before you start applying like, oh, they're energy dom and they're info dom, and then doing that whole game.
Because the application, you can't be really sure if the application is working,
Right.
I mean, you can't, right? You can see if it gives you results, but it's still not as reliable as if you had a well-developed model. But sorry.
Right. No, that's great. No, that's a great clarification. I think that was kind of, I think, maybe the root of the discussion, because then that was the main point of the first topic. And then the second half was when you were going into consciousness and your beliefs about it being primary, the dualism underneath it, or that it's presupposed on. And then even there, it's like your approach to it is you're refining the model so that then there can be application later, right? And so maybe that's the key takeaway, right? Like, is this kind of duality between model and application?
Like, for example, I've thought of making my own YouTube videos on OP, right? But I don't feel comfortable in talking about something that I don't understand myself, and it doesn't make sense to me in my head. And so I'm still in the part of understanding it for myself. And one of the ways that I'm doing it personally in my own life is, okay, I'm trying to be better at typing. Because if I'm better at typing, then I can make because subjectivity, intuition has given me enough problems, right? Like if you could just go about what you believe, you get hit by reality eventually, always. And then the reality, you will actually have to forcefully change your own beliefs of how things were happening, because reality just hits you. Like you got a Mike Tyson punch, like you got your own ideas of reality, but reality will always put you back in your place. And so what I'm realizing is that, okay, I want to be more like this, like this stuff that I'm talking about. I would like to make YouTube videos and stuff and blast this to the tribe. But I can't, because if I just give you my ideas of it and then don't show how they apply onto, for example, typing, right, which is a more objective, provable thing, ST thing, right? Yeah. If I can connect those two, then it's pointless, I need to be able to connect those two. So personally, I'm still in the phase where I'm still understanding this. Yeah. So you're kind of getting my view, but it's not a well-defined view.
It's
But what I want to, the key point from my view personally, and that's why I talked about consciousness, is that the starting point of my personal theory behind all of what we're doing with OP is consciousness. That's my key takeaway that I would like to share here. Yeah. Consciousness is where it all begins. You need to acknowledge that consciousness is fundamental, and that's why it correlates so well with Donald Hoffman's theory of conscious agents.
Okay.
Well, even though he's got a bunch, he does a bunch of math stuff that I can't even begin to comprehend. You know, I know what Markov chains mean, but that's it. You know.
Yeah.
But you need to start with consciousness. I think that the start point for understanding OP. So if what I'm trying to say, if OP is a branch and consciousness is the root or the trunk, that's my key takeaway. If I had something to share here in this video right now,
nice.
that's what I think personally. That's why TI find is true for me at this moment.
Nice, yeah. All right, cool. Well, I'd love to see how you model this over time. I mean, I know you're still kind of studying and working on this, but you know, hopefully, eventually, you kind of start sharing maybe some of those insights. I'd love to hear those. Yeah, no, really appreciate the conversation, man.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I didn't even notice the time pass. I don't know if I interrupted you too much. I'm not used to doing these kinds of talks. I'm kind of nervous. So yeah, I don't know if I interrupted you too much or something. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like it was the opposite. Like I feel like I was kind of so excited that I you know, there were some moments there.
That's good. I'm really glad for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and end the recording. I do want to talk to you about kind of just logistics after, so stay on.
Right.
But for everyone else watching, you know, thank you all so much. Truly appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. All right, ending it.